Okay, everyone, this is my spoiler review of X-Men the Animated Series, Season 4, Episode 1, The Juggernaut Returns. This originally came out May 6th, 1995. It was originally part of Season 3. Now, we open this episode with this humorous character in Eugene Torbert Wiederspan. That is his name, and he is in the Cave of Cyttorak. This is actually the first time we're seeing the Cave of Cyttorak, which is pretty cool. Juggernaut has a great origin story in the comics, where actually Charles is with him when he's getting his powers from the Ruby, which we actually haven't seen in this show, which is a little disappointing, but they kind of do their best here to explain how Juggernaut got his powers by seeing how Eugene is trying to get the powers of the Juggernaut. But they do a good job of cutting between him and Juggernaut coming out of the ocean where we last saw him. I love when Juggernaut is on this bridge and how loud they make his stomps in this episode. There's actually really good sound in this episode and effects, especially too when Juggernaut gets to the X mansion and he pushes and punches through the walls and the doors. It really felt awesome to watch because of the sound was great. And I love when he's on this bridge and takes a cab and he looks like a Mario Kart character the way he fits into the cab and there's no roof on it. I thought that was hysterical. Also, really cool stuff we get to see at the X mansion where when Professor X presses a button when he sees Juggernaut is there, that he has turrets come out of the ground, and also we see this net come out with this stun effect. I thought it was cool to see the X mansion kind of have its own little gadgets. And a really cool cameo here is when he calls different X-Men to come help, that Scott and Wolverine are at Muir Island, and when they're leaving off of the island, you see Morph is in a wheelchair. They're waving, so it's nice to see Morph, a character that's often forgotten. I also love that when Professor X calls the X-Men to help, that the ones that don't answer is Jubilee because she's doing a dive off a diving board at a pool party, and Gambit's just fixing a school bus somewhere. That was great. Now, it's really cool when Juggernaut gets to Professor X because he falls into the danger room and we get to see Professor X toy with him a bit. He uses all these multiple Juggernauts that are Juggernaut robots, which was awesome, but we get a really cool robot version to see and animated of the Hulk, which was surprising and very exciting. But we'll see through all this, the transition begins where Eugene now becomes a Juggernaut and Kane loses his powers and it puts him on bed rest. There's always funny moments in the animation itself. I love when Beast picks up Professor X to get him out of the danger room and he does a front flip while he's still holding Professor X. Now, where the writing gets really good is that Professor X says that Kane is pleading for help. He can sense it, and that he snaps at Rogue when she says, you know, screw him basically. X still wants to help him because it's still his stepbrother. Now, while this is happening, this very serious storyline with X and his brother, there's still great comical moments happening here with Eugene, who we really realize he just wanted to impress girls now with this new look as a Juggernaut. And that Cyclops and Wolverine will find Eugene at this dance club, basically trying to get laid. And I love he throws them, and then he goes and still proceeds to dance on the dance floor. But they easily grab the Ruby from him, and then when he's going after them and they get in the Blackbird, he falls into a studio filming the Power Rangers. So it's a cool little cameo. You get a little rendition of the theme song of Power Rangers. It makes sense because this was on Fox Kids X-Men the Animated Series, so this was also a Fox Kids show with Power Rangers, so it was like their own little universe here. Now, where the good stuff happens is when X probes Kane's mind and we get these flashbacks of them growing up together. We see Kane looks exactly like a character from the show Recess, but he's bullying Charles. But what we see in his bullying is that we get from his perspective what his dad was doing to him. That his dad says, if Charles's mother dumps me, we'll be all out of that money. So his dad has a sinister plan to really just marry Charles's mother for the money. He doesn't care about Charles himself. And it's really awful because she's also ill. And this is why he sends Kane away, because he doesn't want Kane to mess up his plan again the way by treating Charles poorly. I love when Professor X tells Beast all this, and Beast has that line, "How very sad, the sins of the father." So that did a good job of building sympathy for Kane, but we see now when Charles probes his mind again how awful Kane really was to him. And he literally called him a mutie the minute he found out he was a mutant, bullied him endlessly, made the kids hate him at school, even Sandra, whoever that is. But Storm has a standout moment here where she goes to comfort Charles when he flips a switch and he's like, this guy doesn't deserve any sympathy. And Storm says, I ask only that you should understand him. You have taught us not to let the past control our hearts. So it's a great moment, and in film and TV, those are great moments where the teacher is brought back to his self by his students that he had taught these lessons. So X goes into Kane's mind again, and he lets him know he'll give him the powers back. But this is where Kane's like, well, what's in it for you? And he says, the satisfaction of saving your life. But he goes, I will continue to be your living nightmare. And he said, that is my burden to bear. So really great line there, and just showing Professor X at his best and how he's able to be the bigger person and his forgiveness. Now, when Kane is in the process of getting his powers back as the Juggernaut, it cuts to Eugene, and he's losing his powers. And while he's losing his powers, he's picking up 2 tables of women, and he's like, more music, more dancing. Just hysterical to see. But we see that a woman actually likes him when he's himself again, so nice little message there. And this great ending of this episode, which was the best part about it, where Kane is Juggernaut again, and he just walks away, and Rogue's like, I see it and I don't believe it. And Charles says he chose not to continue his attack. I believe that is his way of saying thank you, with the sunset there visually. Amazing ending. One of the best endings I can remember in any of the episodes, which really brings up the score for me. So overall, I'm going to give this one a 9. I think it's a solid episode with really good lessons for kids in general too, that they took really good stories from the comics and morals from the comics and put them into an area where kids could really appreciate it. Even adults too. It's just good writing in general, and it shows some of the best of X-Men and their stories and this relationship that is very complicated between Charles and his stepbrother Kane. So they did a worthy job of that. I just wish that in the story of Juggernaut through the show that they had shown that original origin where Charles is actually there and Kane gets the ruby and his powers and actually see it. But this is a good way of doing justice to that without actually doing all of that and showing that. So I really enjoyed it, and I thought the Eugene stuff was ridiculous and hysterical at the same time. It was cool to see a Power Rangers cameo as well. Solid episode for me. Let me know what you thought below. I'd love to hear your comments. I read every comment, try to respond as many as I can. Hit that sub button. This is a brand new X-Men channel. I can use all the support I can get, and I'll see you next time.